Hi everyone, welcome to Confessions of a Marketing Mind. Today I have Taryn with me.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome, great to have you. I'm really excited to dive into web digital and also all the amazing work you've done with Link and everything in between. So I think the best place to start is, could you tell me about the geekiest thing about you?
Oh gosh. Okay, there's so many. Okay, my team would probably say the geekiest thing about me is my desire to watch lots and lots of LogRockets. So we use LogRocket to record user sessions on our website, and I am massively addicted to watching them. I know it sounds really lame, but I just love seeing how people use our platform, what they come to, people rage clicking certain buttons.
Yeah.
I've discovered firstly I've come up with lots of different product ideas, but I've discovered so many little problems and bugs, and I just love it. So that's probably the nerdiest thing about me.
I think I need to try that today. I've never used LogRocket.
Oh, it's so addictive.
If I need something to do, which I'm sure I'll spend a lot of time on it. So the first thing I'd love to dive into is your thoughts on the digital marketing landscape. Everything is changing so quickly, let alone with the past year we've had. So what would you say the top 3 things people need to look out for?
Oh my gosh, you're right. There's been so many changes. And I think, top 3 things. I think coming up now is the iOS changes and the privacy changes that we're going to see, because obviously that's going to have a huge impact on all different types of digital marketing and the content that we can capture from, the information we can capture from the consumer. So I think that's really important for everyone to be abreast of. And if you haven't looked into it yet, go and chat to your agency or your internal team and find out how it's going to impact you. I think with COVID, we really saw a change in how people connect with consumers and the type of content that consumers want to engage with. So we saw so many brands shifting towards making content that adds value, which is, something that really, ideally, content should always add value to your consumer. But we saw them shifting towards, providing content like, at-home workouts if they were an activewear brand, instead of just going, here's some beautiful photos of our activewear, you should buy it. So I think that's something that, as a brand, you should be conscious of and thinking about, is what I'm doing now, is it adding value, or is there a better way that I can do that? And probably just looking at the trends in data as we come out of COVID, and whilst we say, whatever the new norm is going to be, I think it's just really important. We're going to have so much information as to what we've been through over the last 12 months and all of these predictions about where we're going to go. But I think taking time to go through that data, because we're going to see so many new interesting trends, I think it's really important to spend the time really digging into it and not just making these assumptions that we're going to go back to where we were pre-COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love your thing about not making assumptions, because I think your gut can take you really far, and that's kind of one of our things we always talk about. But at the end of the day, sometimes the data tells a completely different story.
Totally.
And so being able to make that pivot really quickly, which is probably one of the things that's helped a lot of businesses kind of survive COVID, is just pivoting really quickly.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Are there any particular ways that you found really helpful that you've kind of grown the team in the past year as well, just considering everything?
Yeah, I mean, we've really had to focus on the things that were going to get us through COVID and the features of our business that were really thriving. So we saw a huge shift towards brands predominantly doing online content and influencer marketing. So understandably, The Right Fit is a 2-sided marketplace for creative talent. We have photographers and models and actors and stylists and all different sorts of things. Yeah. And understandably, there was a big shift away from doing experiential events, doing large TVCs, because there was obviously the brand damage concern if someone got COVID on set, the health and safety issues of actually can you have, a large team on set shooting content.
Very, very problematic.
Yeah, exactly. So we saw a lot of brands shifting towards doing small bits of snackable digital content and using influencers to actually create content, not just to share on their own channels, but to share on the brand's social channels as well. And so we really had to double down on building out a much broader team to be able to help clients who had never done that before and were really dipping their toes into the water for the first time, to equip them and to train them. And so we actually launched an agency through this period that just look after basically influencer marketing campaigns for our clients and run them through the core Right Fit marketplace. So for us, we really invested in hiring more account managers and more BDMs and more people that could just help our clients who really were doing something for the first time. It was a complete shift for them, dipping their toes in influencer marketing or making that sort of social content. So I think that's something we'll probably see continue to grow over the next 12 months.
That's amazing, and I love your point earlier on just saying people really dipping their toes in for the first time and having that oh no moment really of I need to be online. And maybe that's why people have really had to step up as well in terms of the value they add. Because
Absolutely.
you have to stand out. Everyone's on.
Yes. Yeah, we always say, like, how can you make thumb-stopping content? Because people are like this all day, right?
Yeah.
They're just scrolling through content.
Yeah.
What is actually going to make them stop? It's not just going to be a pretty photo, or worse yet, using advertising photos on social channels, like just not the place for it. So what's actually going to make someone stop and go, wow, that's really got cut through. That's really, captured my attention. I want to engage with this brand. This is entertaining me or informing me or helping me in some sort of way. So.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting. A lot of brands have obviously misstepped during COVID, but also done amazingly. Have there been any favourites kind of wins from last year as well?
Oh, there's been so many. I think the brands that really, as you touched on before, pivoted. So seeing so many of those brands that actually pivoted into doing something that was helpful. So whether it was making hand sanitizer or Lamborghini, one of our global clients, they pivoted to making parts for ventilators and oxygen machines. So, there's so many brands that pivoted to do phenomenal things that could practically help. And then seeing all of the brands that really thought about their core community and weren't focused on, because we saw a lot of people at the start of COVID come to us and say, I just don't know if it's appropriate for us to be marketing right now. Maybe we should just turn off all of our marketing and stay quiet. And I'm like, that's totally the wrong thing to be saying. Like, this is when your customer needs to hear from you, but not necessarily how you traditionally think about marketing. This isn't like, let's have a sale or you should buy our stuff. It's about people are scared, they're uncertain, they're maybe going through a change of job position or whatever it might be. How can you support them through that, and where is the place for your brand in that? So we saw Style Runner do fantastic at-home workouts and things like that I think, wow, that's an amazing sort of almost public service. Yes, it adds value for the brand, but they went, hey, look, all of our customers who would normally be out training at gyms, how can we just help them? How can we add some value? So little things like that I think are phenomenal. And hopefully we see marketers applying that post-COVID, whatever that sort of looks like, but thinking about how can I use our brand to really add value and help our customers outside of just it being this traditional, maybe transactional relationship.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think that whole point around connecting with people, that hasn't changed regardless of the medium or the format or whatever channel you're looking at. And I definitely jumped on a few Zoom workouts. Because they were definitely a lot of fun. So true. You miss going to the studio, you miss going to the gym.
Yeah, and that connection, right? Seeing people.
It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. One thing I was really keen to ask you is, are there any examples of one of your biggest challenges that you kind of worked through and how you overcame it?
Oh, absolutely. We've had so many. We're in a really interesting position because we're technically like a B2B business. And over the last 12 months, we really spent a lot of time segmenting our customer base because originally when we launched The Right Fit, we really thought it was, okay, we're selling to marketers, all different kinds of marketers and production people. There can be one completely, unique customer type and we'll create all of our marketing messages and our channels and we'll go to market with that. But what we found is we actually have two very different types of user groups. And one group are creating content, so they're booking photographers and models and actors and voiceover artists. And the others are using influencers. And they're actually two completely different jobs to be done. Like, they're very, very different outcomes, they're very different decision makers internally in a company, and they have a very different user experience, even down to things like the average job value on our platform or the length of time that a project stays open. So this year we spent a lot of time digging into that, and it was a real challenge for us because there was only about maybe a 10% overlap in people that perform both of those things on our site. So actually we had to go right back to start, and it was almost like a new go-to-market strategy. How do we solve for both of these customer groups? What do they need, and what different content do they need? What different features do they need? And how are we going to speak to them when they're two completely different types of customers? So that was a huge challenge for us. It took a lot of time and really sitting down and mapping it out and going, okay, what do they need? How can we empower them? How can we change the onboarding experience for each of these and the onboarding drip of information that they receive? And then making sure that they're getting the right touch points from us proactively through their entire user journey. So it was really, really challenging. It was literally just almost one of the blessings of COVID because it kind of gave us the time to do that and lock ourselves in a room and sit down and go, right, let's rethink. We can't just keep talking to our customer base as one customer base. We really need to go back and do this work. and all of the painful things of like rewriting customer onboarding email scripts and like reshooting all the video content. So it was a huge piece of work, but really worth it.
That's amazing, and I love that story because I think it says a lot about using data to actually steer the way and actually realise that, okay, hey, it's a good thing, now you can actually make decisions off the back of it.
Totally.
And create campaigns around it. Are there any other examples of that where you kind of discovered that piece of data that's kind of completely switched and pivoted a campaign?
Yeah, there's probably been a lot of things that we see predominantly from clients' work, where we'll see a lot of clients going, we had a lot of clients over the last 12 to 24 months go, we really want to do an influencer campaign, and influencer campaign's the right thing for us. You know, we've got X amount of budget and this is what we want to do. And we would sit down with them and we would go through their data and the information that they would give to us, and we'd go, actually, that's not right. That's not right for you. You shouldn't be doing an influencer campaign now. And we'd find all of these interesting things, you know, that they hadn't done customer subsets yet, or they didn't have tracking set up on their website. You know, they didn't have even their basic content. And so, you know, in good faith, we can't take your money and then say, yeah, sure, you should go and, you know, get some influencers when you don't have a mobile-friendly shopping experience.
The foundation's not there.
Totally.
It's bought in traffic, it's bought in isn't going to actually translate.
Exactly. So we see a lot of that, I think, just different data points that we get from clients. You know, being able to say to them, well, actually, you know, you're seeing a huge amount of conversions from this channel. So why do you think that you want to do an influencer campaign on Facebook when actually almost all of your leads are coming from YouTube or are coming from Pinterest? So getting them to think more broadly and using that data that they have within their organizations that they're probably just not spending enough time digging through.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so interesting, just thinking about, well, if you put that same amount of money elsewhere, you could potentially get double the results.
Absolutely.
Or double the impact.
Absolutely. And I'm sure it's a pain point that you have all the time, is just going through with clients and making sure that those basics and fundamentals are set up first. You know, that's what sets you up for success, making sure all of that basic hygiene stuff is done on your website, that checkout is easy, that people can find the information that they want. You know, for us, it's like making sure that they've got retargeting campaigns set up, all of the things that are going to make, you know, the work that we do in either finding ambassadors or opinion leaders or whatever much more successful.
Definitely. I think kind of the phrase we use a lot internally is the halo effect. Is that one thing will only have a better halo effect on every other channel. That's only if all channels are firing together. If
I
you're
love
just
that.
kind of doing everything one at a time and not connecting it. That's
Oh my God, I'm stealing that. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yes. So one of the biggest challenges, completely at your point, for the businesses we see is ROI. Kind of the biggest question, because if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. If you don't even have those kind of core metrics of average lifetime value or average cost to acquire a customer, it's very difficult to then improve. So would you say there are similar challenges you faced with the businesses you worked with?
Absolutely. And I think so commonly it's just about not taking the time to stop and even write a hypothesis before you go out and want to execute a campaign. So, or, you know, we'll have people come to us and say, hey, we want to do a photo shoot, or we want to do a short piece of video content or an influencer campaign, or whatever it might be. And taking that time to understand the why behind the behavior. So what is the actual outcome and what does success look like? Is it, you know, as you say, reducing the acquisition cost, or is it improving lifetime value of the customer, or is it increasing the average booking value, or, you know, order size? Because if you stop and look through all of that information, then it's really easy to sort of write out the steps to be able to track whether or not that's been successful. You know, is it that we're using discount codes at checkout? Is it that we're simply tracking traffic to site from, you know, a swipe up link from Instagram or whatever it might be? And then we're building these retargeting campaigns to move them further down the funnel. Or should the campaign actually be purely focused around testimonials and we're really trying to drive that last sort of, you know, 5% conversion through the funnel or whatever it might be. But it's impossible to sort of think about ROI and what you can predict that to be when you haven't sort of set an experiment to start with. And so I think we just try and encourage everyone to slow down and, you know, really think about those things before they decide what the instrument is to get done. So whether that is, you know, an influencer campaign or, you know, a photo shoot or whatever, actually going, what it is that we're trying to achieve, and then work backwards from there, because you might find out it's actually completely something different. You know, maybe you should be doing just Google AdWords, or, you know, you just don't know.
I think I love your message around slow down, because it's almost the opposite of what the entire internet culture is. You're constantly going, constantly connected. And it is true, we all need to be online, we all need to be kind of being where our customers are. But at the same time, why.
Yeah.
Asking why is
Exactly. You know, like the FOMO, like, oh my gosh, I should be doing Facebook ads because everyone else is doing Facebook
My
ads.
competitors are.
Yeah. And you're like,
They're up
well,
there, but
is that really the right channel for you and your brand? And what are you trying to see from it? Maybe it's a brand awareness piece, or, you know, oh, we really should do a white paper, you know, download packs. Great. Okay. Well, are you going to run those on Facebook ads? Like, is that the right fit? You know? So I think just thinking about those things is, super important.
Definitely. I think one of the things we get often as well is that a company comes to us and asks for SEO, but then they don't have a website. And that's probably the biggest first step is like go back, get a really good website, get a good developer.
We might be magical, but we can't.
We can't help with that one bit, but we can help with all these other things. We can help with the strategy behind how that website should be structured.
Yeah.
But there are kind of some stepping stones you've got to do first before you get to that,
Totally.
that running,
Yes.
the sprint.
The sprint, yeah.
Awesome. So what would you say, Taryn, has been the biggest digital marketing achievement in the past year?
Ooh, that's a great question. Probably for us as a team, we did an influencer marketing ebook that took so much time to put together. It's like
always take longer
65 pages long or something. And I kind of, when it originally came up with the idea, I was like, oh great, we'll crack that out in a couple of days and get it live. And it definitely took longer than that. But the leads that we saw generated from it were phenomenal. And I think that comes back to that idea of adding value. People were absolutely willing to exchange some personal information, we're only asking for an email address in exchange to download something that was really going to add value to them. And we made it very, very clear what it included, everything from pricing guides to briefing templates to how to measure ROI, all of the things that we were constantly hearing from our customers that they were unsure about. So for us, that definitely really performed, and it was probably our big first foray into content marketing and thinking about that as a channel and a scalable channel. So it's definitely our focus for the next 6 months is more about content.
Amazing. And I guess it's one of the things that with lead generation, to your point, one amazing, rock solid, high value asset goes 10 times as far as trying to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we'd been caught in this loop previously of being like, we need to write another blog, and, and then try and seed them out across all of these channels, because doing something like an ebook or a white paper just felt so overwhelming. But, yes, the time invested to doing it, was certainly much more extensive than just, another blog. But the ROI was, far outperformed, just a one-off article. So I would highly recommend, as you say, sort of invest the time to make a really gold piece of content up front, and the rewards will pay off.
Yeah, amazing. So as kind of self-professed nerds, I think the both of us,
yes,
we have to talk about tools.
Yeah.
What are your die-hard tools?
Oh gosh, okay. There's a bunch. I mean, obviously I love LogRocket, as we touched on earlier, and I think whilst it's not technically a marketing tool, it is fantastic to see how different users perform when they come from different sources, and you can get into that level of granularity. So if you go and do the first touch attribution and see where they came from, and then you can actually look them up, each different user, and go, wow, people that are coming from this particular ebook download are far more interested in X, Y, and Z, or they're spending way more time on site, or they're, searching way more content than ever before. They're going to have a very different time to checkout, for example, than someone who comes from, AdWords, where it's very intent driven. So that's been really interesting. I love that as a tool. I'm a big fan of Intercom as well. Which we use, obviously, on-site pop-ups to be able to drive things like ebook downloads, but also just to prompt user behaviour as they're going through site. So really easy to trigger those on-site alerts. And if you can see that someone's, clicked 5 pages of foodie influencers, then present them some information about food influencers, it's going to make their purchasing decision easier. So big fan of that. And then I think obviously all the basics, so GA and Facebook Ads Manager.
Yes.
I must also say, obviously being in our business, hugely visual based business, Instagram, I just can't go past it. I mean, personally as a consumer, I love it, but professionally, just being able to showcase visually incredible work that our content creators make. So whether that's, videographers or models or actors or influencers, being able to showcase that in real time and celebrate them on a platform that really does justice to their work, I think is phenomenal.
Amazing. I completely agree with all of them. The only thing I haven't tried is LogRocket, so
you've got to.
I'm going to get on it. We're not sponsored, by the way.
Yeah, I feel like I should be getting some sort of affiliate commission now.
So one of the things I do get asked quite a bit is, how can you really help a business stand out? And I guess the question is always unorthodox, out there, maybe unique marketing strategies that people haven't really used before. Have you found any that have really worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're super unorthodox, but pre-COVID, we were all about the face-to-face event. And people were like, that's really weird because you're like an online business and you're like a tech marketplace. But I really think that it's important to connect with your customer. And because we're in a B2B space, it's probably a little bit more scalable than if you're like a pure play e-com business. But we would take time out, we'd do them once a quarter, and we would get some of our high value clients and sort of leads in a room. And we do really great information sessions where we would get some thought leaders and key opinion leaders from different industries to talk about trends they're seeing in digital marketing, or, you know, how to create content at scale, or, you know, social media trends, or whatever it might be. And it was just an opportunity for them to get to, our clients to get to understand a little bit more about us as a brand, whilst obviously learning really interesting information. And I think the sort of brand, sort of halo effect that you were talking about before, they come away with a sentiment about our brand that is positive. And that really helps because we have a longer purchasing decision. People aren't just coming to site thinking about something, you know, a marketing campaign, putting up a job and checking out, you know, and so we need to sort of be front of mind for a longer period of time. So events worked really well for us. And we also did a video content series, which was something that I probably was a little bit skeptical about, maybe, about the investment in terms of time and energy and costs in pulling all of that together. But again, performed really well. And it was, we really took the time to make sure that it wasn't just a transactional, you know, here's how to use a website, or, you know, buy our stuff kind of. And it was a really in-depth, you know, they were almost hour-long interviews with thought leaders about, again, like really different types of subjects. You know, we did actually one on measuring ROI on campaigns, and customers just really loved that. And I think it was purely by chance that we happened to shoot them the week before COVID. And so we had all of this bank of long-form content to roll out during COVID, when people were stuck at home with very little else to do. So exactly, stuck in that scroll hole. So yeah, I think just maybe thinking about things that you could do. I know I sort of feel like I keep saying it, but that you can do to add value, and trying to get outside that box of doing the conventional things, you know, chatting out another Facebook ad, or, you know, whatever it might be, and thinking about, you know, when we did the events, I was like, what would I love to do if I was a brand marketer? Do I want to sit, you know, online and tune into a webinar? Probably not. Or do I want to do something? And we made sure that they were really easy events to get to. We did breakfast ones that were sort of like 8 a.m. till 10 a.m. or something like that. So, you know, we tried to make it really low involvement. You know, I was like, I don't want to give up my evenings to go to a work event. You know, how can I do this in a way that's going to not impact and actually, make an experience that they love? So
I love what you said earlier about that positive sentiment, because trust and credibility and actually that feel-good sentiment, it's harder to quantify, it's harder to create. But when you have it, obviously, it's just powerful. It's return customers, it's people obviously recommending you and word of mouth.
Absolutely. And they can never quite tangibly put their finger on what it is. They just really like you as a brand. And I think it also gives you a lot more leeway, you know, when you are trying new things or releasing new products, you know, your customers, when they're really loyal like that, and they'll be so much more willing to give you feedback or trust you through a new trial. So yeah, definitely worth investing in.
Yeah, it's, I guess in the end, it's that accumulation, like you said, with different touch points. It's the accumulation of every single experience coming together and forming someone's opinion on something, which again speaks to kind of multi-touch, thinking of like the long-term consideration period.
Yes, yeah, and that's why I love what you said about before, where you can't just have one channel running in a silo. Like you can't just say, I'm going to take all of my money and invest it in AdWords, and that's going to be my, like, you need to have a great website that, you know, functions really well. You need to have content that's really adding value. Exactly. Like you need to have all of these other touch points so people can really deeply understand your brand and build that trust over time across different touch points.
Yeah, 100%. The last question I'd love to ask is, what is your biggest advice for businesses out there this year?
Oh, okay. My biggest advice for businesses out there this year would be to surround yourself with really, really good people, whether that's internally or externally. I think what we saw through the challenges of the last 12 months was that the businesses that succeeded were people who had really great people in their teams. So whether that was having agencies that they really trusted, who were ahead of the curve, who reached out to them directly and said, hey, just letting you know, this is what we're seeing, these are the trends, this is how we're going to pivot your campaigns to make sure that you're, staying ahead of the curve. Or internal team members who, as we all know, it was really challenging. Lots of people had to, shift to part-time work or, were stood down for a period of time. And having those really amazing people, I certainly saw it with my team. They absolutely got in the trenches and went above and beyond and delivered. They were proactively coming up with ideas. We had people from totally random parts of the business, helping engineering with new product ideas and things like that. So I think if you can surround yourself with those people and value those people and invest in those people, again, whether it's internally or externally, I think that would be my number one tip, because I think COVID really made me realize how important that was.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that in terms of COVID kind of really maybe, I think the true colours of every single person is
absolutely
that when you kind of invest in people really shine. That's when you really kind of rally together and you get through a really difficult period. And and
I think in business that your people are 100% your biggest asset. People, I think business owners or leaders or managers can sometimes forget that, and when you reframe that positioning and you go, actually, like these people are paid to be here to help me achieve a goal, and I genuinely believe people generally are good and they desperately want to have a career that's fulfilling and that delivers, not just for their company but for them also. So unlock that potential and give them the capacity and ability to do that.
I love what you mentioned just then, because it made me think of all the strategy we've been doing is you have these great people, you need to then lock in that goal. And that's the thing, is that everyone's on the same, kind of running the same race towards the same goal, and that's when you get really excited. So maybe my final question is what are your goals and vision for this year for the team?
Yeah, well, we've actually just been doing the same thing, which has been really exciting. And that, I think, the new year's a really nice time to do it, stop and take stock and go through what worked last year and what didn't and what the blockers are and where the opportunities are. And, we just had such a strong period of growth last year, which is exciting but also challenging, as you would well know. So for us, it was about sitting down and looking at those sort of two different customer subsets we have, and then how we're going to really develop the product to make sure that they have really phenomenal experiences. So we're doing an incredible amount of product work this year into further separating those customer experiences. And then we have a huge part of our platform, which is about contra collaborations and contra gifting, which is like social media exchanges for free products. So that's another huge focus of us this year. It's been a small part of our product, but we're moving it out into a much bigger part and building a whole team, standalone sort of tiger team. To really just work on that and be siloed in their focus.
That is amazing. That is very exciting.
So lots to do, and never enough time, as you would well know.
As always.
An exciting year ahead.
Lovely. And that's a wrap. So Tara, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure, and I learned so much just bouncing ideas with you. So.
Oh, it's been amazing. I've learned so much, and I'm off to go try Lock Rocket. Not sponsored. But again, thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us, and I'll see you next time.